In a word or two, say it is a blessed mess. I feel incredibly blessed every day. And it is very messy in every sense of the word.
Welcome to the How It Feels to Be a Mother podcast, where we dive into the emotional complexities and varied experiences of motherhood. I'm your host, Sarah Broberg. This judgment-free zone is a place where mothers can express their authentic feelings and experiences as whole human beings. In each episode, we'll explore the catalyst question at the heart of this movement. How does it feel to be a mother? Through engaging discussions with mothers from diverse backgrounds from around the world, we'll explore the complexity of emotions along the continuum of motherhood. Join us as we speak with mothers from all walks of life, from those with infants to those with adult children, uncovering the vast emotional continuum of motherhood. Whether you find motherhood to be a blessing or a challenge or somewhere in between, sometimes all at once, this podcast is here to validate your feelings and to break the stigma, shame, and guilt that can often accompany maternal experiences. Tune in and be a part of a movement that empowers mothers to embrace the emotional depths of what it really feels like to be a mother. Join the conversation. Welcome to another episode of How It Feels to Be a Mother. I'm your host, Sarah. Today, we're joined by Casey, a 41-year-old mother to a nearly 2-year-old son. In this conversation, Casey opens up about what she lovingly calls the blessed mess of motherhood. She reflects on the whirlwind of emotions, the daily highs and lows, and the impact that even the simplest routines, like tidying up the house, have on her mental state. Casey also shares the challenges of shifting her career focus from nonprofit work to full-time motherhood and the ongoing struggle to find balance between her professional identity and her role as a stay-at-home mom. She talks candidly about the importance of work-life balance and the complex emotions surrounding her return to the workforce. She also discusses the multicultural and bilingual dynamics in her family, including the challenges, joys, and surprises. Casey shares how motherhood has defied her expectations, teaching her lessons about self-discovery, letting go of control, and being present in the moment. Join us as we explore the complexity of emotions along the continuum of motherhood. Casey, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of How It Feels to Be a Mother. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Absolutely. So I always like to make sure our viewers and listeners have a little bit of context to your story. So it'd be great if you could please provide your age, your preferred pronouns, your relationship status, the ages of your children, and their preferred pronouns. And I'll give you the prompts if you forget them, because that's kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot late afternoon on a Friday.
So I am 41. And my preferred pronouns are she, her. My relationship status is married. And my son, Leno, is going to be 2 in January. And his preferred pronouns are he, him.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm really curious to know about the name Leno, so we might get into that in a minute.
Sure.
But first things first, Casey, the catalyst question: how does it feel to be a mother?
Yes, I would, in a word or two, say it is a blessed mess. I feel incredibly blessed every day. And it is very messy in every sense of the word. Physically, our house is typically in disarray, which is challenging for me. And emotionally, highs and lows every day, every hour, often within minutes. You can go from, sweet cuddles and sentimental, intimacy, and then just feel like you're going to tear your hair out the next minute and you don't know which way to turn or what to do. And it's all of it, all wrapped up together. And I would say a blessed mess.
You said having like kind of the house in disarray is a hard thing for you. I'm curious to know a little bit more about that because I think I might like trend in that same direction in some ways.
Um, yeah, I guess I didn't realize how much order, um, affected my mental state and how important it was for me to think clearly and, be able to, you know, think and do whatever I need to do. Like, I realized that I really need the house to be in order. It doesn't even have to be like super clean, but just orderly in order for me to move on to the next thing. And, 9 times out of 10, it's not. And so it has been a process of me kind of trying to let go of that and trying to work around the mess, or just like deal with it at the end of the day. Just let it be. Um, And it's also been a process of talking to my husband about it and teaching Leno how to put his shoes away. And at the end of every day, we have him put his trains away and we sing a song about putting our toys away. And he's gotten into the rhythm. I am so proud to say he's gotten into a rhythm of like actually doing it and enjoying it. And he doesn't fight us on it. It's just like part of his rhythm before bedtime. So I'm really happy about that. And we've, there's definitely room for more order on a regular basis throughout the day. And yeah, I have to say that listening to podcasts about cleaning my house is the most motivating thing I can do. And there's so many tips out there that I never thought of, never knew about. And it often motivates me also to clean. So that's been really helpful. I never thought I would listen to podcasts about cleaning, but I do.
Yeah, that's not something that I've put on tap, but it's so funny because like only recently have my partner and I like started like really enforcing like, hey kids, like take your shit up to your rooms because guess what we discovered when they were away for a little bit? Like we actually really like a tidy house. And so like 12 pairs of shoes that belong to like two human beings, like upstairs, like no, you could just keep it up there. You have the whole entirety of the upstairs to yourself. So maybe I need to add a little jingle to this and then we're golden.
Oh yeah, it goes toys away, toys away. Now we put our toys away. And then they start putting the toys away or the shoes and you say, thank you, thank you. Thank you for putting your shoes away.
This
Really,
is
quite
golden.
something. Yeah, very
I'm
catchy.
totally going to do this. And they're going to look at me like, what on earth? And they're going to put their shoes away. So that's all that I care about.
And they may even start singing the song to themselves, like in the shower. Who knows?
That is my greatest hope. Absolutely. Casey, tell me, does being a mother feel like you thought it would?
First I would back up and say I didn't even know I wanted to be a mother until very recently, until like right before I had before I got pregnant. It was a big question in my life. And I think I was first trying to unpack whether motherhood was for me, and whether I wanted to be a mother, whether the world needed more children, whether I was going to be a good mother, was I going to repeat patterns like that I didn't want to repeat, I was kind of trying to wrestle with that first. And then I remember when I was pregnant and my therapist at the time asked me to visualize what it was going to be like, how I wanted to be a mother. And I remember like waking up with this sense of excitement and joy and asking my little one, who was like in my visualization, he was like a 4-year-old. And I said to him, "What do you want to do today?" And for me, it was like realizing that I wanted to really give my child choices and agency, and to be able to help them feel empowered, and not just say, "Here's what we're doing, get in the car, we've got to go there," like basically, yalla yalla, let's get on with it. And sometimes you have to do that also. But I do already with Leno, who's not even 2, often ask him questions and give him choices and options. And he certainly has opinions already. And it's fun. It's fun, and it's interesting, and it's pretty, I don't know, it's incredible to see this little human kind of evolve into this being who yeah, he has his own thoughts and his own preferences. And I going back to the question about is it what I thought it would be? Like, I guess yes and no. I did not realize how much I would love it. Honestly, I did not realize that I could feel this amount of love for a human. I didn't even know it was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it was going to be this hard also, it's, of course it's challenging, and it challenges my identity, like right now I'm a stay-at-home mom, and he's my full-time job. And that was a huge shift for me, in terms of just my whole adult life, being a professional and having a career that I was very proud of, and then kind of really shifting gears and kind of coming to peace with that, and thinking about what does it mean, and how long is it going to be this way, and yeah.
Would you,
The
if you're
question?
open to it? Yeah, absolutely. 100 times over. And I would love to dig a little bit deeper into that sort of self-identity and that kind of struggle if you're open to it. I know there are plenty of listeners out there plenty of mothers who are also dealing with that. I myself have dealt with that in terms of raising kids. And, part of the catalyst for this whole thing is like, I don't necessarily identify as a mom. I'm more like, I'm like a business person or whatever the other things are. So I'd love to hear more about your journey in terms of that self-identity.
Yeah, I'm happy to share what I know. It's very present at the moment, and there's a lot of unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
So I was predominantly a fundraiser in the nonprofit world for almost 20 years. And I also did event management and marketing, and both in the States and also in Israel. And I was always very proud of my career. And also felt like it wasn't what I thought I was going to do when I was younger. But I kind of kept landing on my feet and growing and expanding and getting these opportunities that I was like, couldn't believe I was getting. And then my husband and I moved from Israel to Asheville, North Carolina. And I was still working remotely for a think tank in Israel. And I decided to get a job locally that I wanted to really integrate into the community here in Asheville. I gave him my notice, and that job ended. And a week later, we found out that I was pregnant. And then the full-time job became finding a house, which was always our plan, but kind of got expedited. And so I didn't end up really going back to work. I did some freelance work for different organizations, but it was very sporadic. And so I have not worked as a professional in almost 3 years. And at first, and for a long time, especially like once we got the house and I was going to give birth very soon, I talked to my husband about the importance of not going back to work right away after I gave birth, and that I really wanted to be present for our child at least for 6 months. That was incredibly important to me. And I remember saying that, like, my mom had gone back to work pretty soon after I was born, and she worked extremely hard, and she was on location, like working out of the home a lot. And I remember growing up and just thinking, like, I knew she had to work, and it was very important, also for her and her identity, I think. And she was really good at her job, and she really enjoyed it, and that was important for her. And I felt that I wanted to not go back to work soon after the birth. Like that was important to me. And I'm so glad that I waited. I'm still glad that I waited, and I feel very fortunate that I could wait, that my partner was able to support both of us. And that was a gift for me, and that I could give our son. So now he's almost 2, and I am getting ready to figure out what the next step looks like for me. And I am really excited about it. I feel pretty antsy, like I'm very ready. And I have to say that at first I thought, okay, I'm going to get back into the workforce, and I'm going to get a managerial job, and I'm going to do events around the world, and I'm going to travel all the time, and, have this like high-powered job that I felt like, yeah, I can actually do this. Like I am qualified for a job like that. And I got really carried away with that idea. And then reality sunk in. Actually, like, we found out that we got a spot in a preschool like a couple weeks ago. So Leno's going to start going to preschool in a month, and like reality was setting in, and I realized, like, hold on a minute. He's going to be going to school. We're thinking about 5 days a week, and they do full days. And you can do shorter days, but suddenly I was like, hold on, he's going to school. I'm thinking about going back to full-time work and traveling and also in the event world, you're kind of always on call.
Yes.
And having a work-life balance, especially for me these days, is incredibly important. I never thought how important that would be for me and how important it is for other people. And now I see the real value in it and the importance of it. I was always kind of the single person who didn't have a family and got all the extra projects and didn't mind and really liked being relied on for, that extra work beyond 9 to 5. And I was happy to be that role. And now I realize like, I'm not that person anymore. I can't be that person anymore. And I don't want to actually be that person anymore. Like, I can't imagine not seeing my family every day. For at least a couple hours in the evening, just some quality time. And again, I feel very lucky to be able to say that I think I'm going to have a choice. I know not everyone has a choice. And that must be really hard.
Like what you're hearing? We'd love your feedback. Please leave a review.
You've touched on a few points in the conversation so far. You've touched on one of the themes that's been emerging from these conversations, which is how the ways in which we were raised influence how we choose to raise our children. And so I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, so I was raised first of all in LA, and then we moved to England when I was 9. My mother's English, my father's American. And I remember phrases like mantras in our house, like do as I say, not as I do. Children are what was it? Children
seen and not heard.
Seen and not heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. Yeah, like, and part of it was tongue in cheek and part of it was not. And I chalk it up a little to English culture, British culture. And also my mom's kind of old fashioned in some ways. And, and these days, I would say those mantras are not part of our dynamic, I'm happy to say. But yeah, I think like I knew in terms of like, I knew what I didn't want to do. I knew what I didn't want to be. Also, part of my childhood was heavily revolved around animals. When we moved to England, I grew up on a farm. We had horses and chickens and dogs, and next door there were cows, and I definitely took it for granted when we moved there at the time. But these days I look back and I think that was such a gift that my mom gave me. And that any opportunity I have to bring Leno around animals, I jump on it, whether it's dogs and cats in the street or I take him to a sanctuary that's not so far away. And, we stop and we look at the birds. And, like, I just want animals to be a big part of his life as they were for me, because I think it is, it's a whole nother world that if you tap into it, you can really learn a lot and feel a lot. And I want to pass that on to him, like my mom really gave that to me. And I'm very close with my dad, and we keep in touch all the time, almost every day. And I love it. Sometimes he calls me or I call him. It really doesn't matter, but it is a big part of he is a big part of my daily life. And I would love to think that when Leno grows up, that I would be that person for him. And and I also feel like I can really tell him anything and everything. And I would also really hope that Leno would feel the same about me.
Mm-hmm. How has the feeling of being a mother for you changed over time? I know you're still early days, but
has it changed over time? Over time. I mean, he's always had a big personality, but his personality is like coming out in so many new fun ways every day these days. And, new words all the time and new expressions. And he started to play like pranks on us. And he's just like, he's so funny. And I think that, he always made me smile. But I think I laugh a lot more these days. Cause he's just so funny. I think that something that I have noticed now that you've asked me the question is that, like, I remember thinking when he was first born, he is my greatest teacher. Like, I'm learning so much from this little person. I just have so much to learn, and he is teaching me something every day. And that is still true, very true. But now that he's much more conscious and aware and observing and soaking everything in, I realize, like, okay, Casey, you got to step it up. Like, you are also the teacher. And all eyes are on me and my husband. And that is a great responsibility that, it trumps any job or position I've ever had, for sure. And you see they're sponges. I mean, they are soaking in everything, and the next day he's repeating it and it's coming out, and in some ways. And it's a big deal.
What's your favorite thing about how it feels to be a mom?
My favorite thing about how it feels to be a mom is looking at Leno and thinking, you make everything better. Everything.
That's so beautiful.
So true.
On the flip side of that, what concerns you about how it feels to be a mother?
I mean, in this moment, the idea of him going to school every day or daycare or whatever, and me going back to work, and it is concerning to me that he and I will feel the absence. I mean, I don't think I've been apart from him for more than 4 hours since he was born. And so even though he's incredibly independent and loves playing with other kids and seems to care less if we're there or not, he knows we're there, and so I'm concerned that the absence may be premature. He's not even 2, and I don't know. I I hear all parents go through this, and no matter what age your kid goes up in someone else's care, it's always hard. But yeah, I am feeling that concern and wondering, am I trying to go back to work too soon? For my own self-worth and identity and like, is that what's important for me right now, or is it important to be with him every day? I don't know. I'm conflicted. I'm trying to figure that out. So I think that's my biggest concern today.
Mm-hmm. What surprises you about how it feels to be a mother?
First of all, we are a bilingual, multicultural family. So my husband is Israeli and speaks Hebrew to Leno, and I speak English to him. And English is his leading language. However, he says many words actually in Hebrew at this point. And he's also learning his numbers. And he knows how to count to 10 in English and how to count to 10 in Hebrew. And that is surprising to me. Like, I cannot understand how his brain is figuring that out. And so that has been really surprising. Another thing that is surprising is that before I had a child, I have to say, I often looked at babies and toddlers as babies and toddlers, and eventually they'll grow up and they'll be able to talk and learn stuff and be like a participating member of society, whatever. But
right.
I did not give them credit for how much they are learning every second of the day. Like, they're learning probably a million times more than we're learning these days. And, as adults or as even like teenagers or whatever, and I know also from my work in the past that in utero through 2 years old, the environment and how the child is nurtured and what they're taught and what they absorb is indicative of how they will perform later on in life. And that these early years also in utero are so formative. And I knew that consciously, like I knew that rationally, and I knew that there's evidence and studies to prove it, whatever, but I didn't give it the weight that it deserves, that it really needs. And I really am surprised by me now understanding that, like and really just being blown away by watching him learn so much so quickly and being able to like show it, like it's so clear that he's growing so much every day in his, physically and mentally and emotionally, all of it, spiritually. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot.
Yeah, when you talk about the multicultural aspect, so my children are also multicultural, and I've had had the privilege of having many conversations with other mothers in this podcast who are also multicultural. And one of the kind of themes that comes up is sort of how we navigate like the ethics and the morals and the cultural like aspects of our various of those of those various facets of our lives and like what we choose to kind of hang on to from those cultures and sort of what we say, okay, like maybe we just need to let that go, or kind of how we bring that in to raising our children. And so I'm so curious to know what that looks like for you all, or have you even had those conversations? It might be too early.
Mm. How long do we have?
Go, we have all the time.
Okay. This is a good one. So, in a nutshell, we're both Jewish, and I am American English, and my partner is Israeli. And I had lived in Israel for 5 years before we met. And then we met and we quickly moved to the States. And it has been a real journey in many ways. I would say that Judaism is important for both of us. I'm glad to say that it is a significant part of both of our identities, and it's important to us. It's quite a topical question given what's going on in the Middle East right now. And the situation in Israel and my relationship with Israel is it's very challenging these days. And yet I will just speak for myself and say that I always want Israel to be a part of his identity, and it is a part of his heritage. And he's named after his great-grandmother, his great-tata, and her name is Lily, and she was a Holocaust survivor. And I had the privilege and honor of knowing her for a year before he passed away. And I always want him to know about her and my partner's family, and also my journey and relationship with Israel, which is like a whole nother story. And then there's the question of mandatory military service. So, the rules are I won't get into the rules, but basically he was born in America and he doesn't need to serve in the Army unless we moved there, I believe, when he's a teenager. And if we're living there when he's of age, then he will be required to be in the Army. And I have very mixed feelings about that. I'm not against it, but I'm not necessarily for it either. And a lot will depend on him and what he wants. And I would like to expose him to, opportunities and make sure he has a connection and understanding of Israel from many angles, so that he can really make an informed decision for himself. But, when you have to make this decision, you're still a teenager, and it's definitely a big decision. So I'm kind of dreading that day, but we will see. Who knows what will be.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about if there are any people in your life with whom you talk about how it feels to be a mother.
I am so lucky that I am part of a group of moms in Nashville, some of who I met at a prenatal yoga series, and a couple of them. And it's a group of, I think there's 18 of us. And we are constantly in contact, whether it is on our WhatsApp group or our Marco Polo group. And we've got many Marco Polo channels and many different WhatsApp subgroups. And we talk about everything all the time, like everything, like there's nothing that we don't talk about. And whether it's politics or daycare politics or, I don't know, we've just got many different subgroups, and we also meet up as a group periodically, and I see them individually. So, in terms of, do we talk about how it feels to be a mother? We talk about it a lot. And it is incredibly helpful to have them as a support group. I did not kind of join this group until Leno was probably 8 months or I don't know, somewhere around there, 10 months maybe. And those 10 months were pretty challenging. I mean, I think I leaned on my other friends who've had children, friends that live in San Francisco and DC and Israel. I would be in touch with them a lot about what I was going through. But yeah, I do feel lucky that I can and do have people to talk about it with. The good, the bad, the ugly, the messy, all of it.
Yeah. The untidy homes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All of us share that for sure.
Yeah. And I will say that I went to the doctor recently to talk about my mood, which has been pretty down. And the first thing she asked me is, do you have other mom friends that you can talk to? And I was very glad that I could say yes. I think it's very important.
I'm sorry your mood has been down lately.
Okay. I think it has more to do with the career stuff and Leno now going to school. Yeah.
There's a lot. That complexity of emotions, right? It never ends.
Right.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't talked about how it feels to be a mother for you that you'd like to share?
Okay. First of all, I think there's a lot of societal expectations around motherhood and that it should be this or it should be that. And you're so lucky to be a mom, or congratulations that you're pregnant. And like, sometimes people didn't want that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're in it and again, they don't want to be in it, or they didn't think it was going to be this hard, or, it's not, it can be all the amazing things. And often it, at least for me, it is, and it's also very hard. But like, I think I am more sensitive and aware, maybe now that I am a mom, to just not making assumptions about moms. I really try not to make assumptions. And I also have always tried not to make assumptions about people who aren't moms. Because there are a million reasons why people are not mothers. And I was almost not a mother, and I was very okay with that. And I really believed that it was right for me. And And I'm so glad I became a mom. You know, I did not realize how much I would love it and feel so blessed. But I think just in general, it's a good life lesson not to make assumptions. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Casey. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I appreciate your candor and your openness. It really means a lot to me and to everyone who's going to be listening to this.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, thank you for working on this initiative, and I'm really happy to be a part of it, and just think you're doing really important work. And I'm excited to listen to the other episodes and everything else that this is birthing. Very exciting.
Figuratively, no literal birthing happening here anymore. Right.
Nope. Too many shoes in the house.
Exactly. Take care of your shoes so we can talk.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Casey. Thanks again.
You got it. Bye.
Learn more about how it feels to be a mother by visiting howitfeelstobeamother.com and following us on our socials. Please join the conversation.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this podcast, including those of the host and guests, are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of any entity they represent. Appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The content presented is solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information provided on this podcast or materials linked from the podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.